Welcome back to CEEN Caribbean News. It's now time for In Depth. The United National Congress, UNC, held its internal elections on Saturday, and re-elected leader Kamla-Persad Bissessar dominated the results. Reports out of the country as early as Sunday morning noted that Mrs. Persad Bissessar led the count from the very first ballot, and the result was a landslide victory. Mrs. Persad Bissessar copped 15,477 votes, while her challengers, Dr. Rudal Moonilal and Vasant Barath, got 1,466 and 1,102 votes respectively. But while Mr. Barath has conceded victory, the combative Dr. Moonilal is taking the results with a grain of salt, so to speak, in the wake of images allegedly showing blank ballots dumped in a dam. Questions are now being put forward about whether the elections were free and fair, though the general consensus was that they wouldn't have been. To discuss these and more, we have been joined by political analyst in Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Martin Daly. Welcome to In Depth, Mr. Daly.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Good evening, Trinidad and beyond.
Now, the lead-up to the general elections was filled with tensions among the contenders who were once a tight-knit team. Given that fact, what do you predict will happen going forward as it relates to those who opposed Mrs. Persad Bissessar?
Well, somewhat surprisingly, after the initial declarations that they would be unable to work with each other, Mrs. Persad Bissessar is now suggesting that she would welcome a degree of unity and would welcome them working together. So we'll have to see if they are able to heal. They did say some very harsh things about each other, mostly about who was to blame for losing the September 2015 election.
Now, Mrs. Persad Bissessar had noted publicly that if she had won the internal elections, she would not be willing to work with Dr. Moonilal, Mr. Barath and Tim Gopi Singh, though her position had changed on Sunday. Would the party executive have allowed her to do that?
Well, I don't know that the party executive would have very much of an independent say. She pretty much handpicked her slate. So I imagine they'd go along with the softening of her position, however much they might resent it, you know, within their chest, so to speak. But I think they would go along with it, and she has softened her position.
Speaking on this very program recently, Vasant Barath, one of the challengers, said he did not mind returning to his former job as a senator if he had in fact lost the elections. Now that he has, do you think Mrs. Persad Bissessar will allow him to become a senator again?
I'll be surprised if she gives him back that position in the short term. He'll probably have to work his way back into her good graces. He was a little less harsh in the things that he said about her. Moonilal was harsher in the things he said about her, but I don't imagine she would want to give him a platform so soon after, a platform of being a senator so soon after defeating him.
Now, do you think unity can and will be restored to the party following these chain of events?
If it returns at all, it will be very superficial. She's taking the trouble to remind everyone that when she contested against Mr. Patney in 2010, that Moonilal, Gopi Singh and Barath did not support her. So these are not new wounds, you know, they go back a little way, they're old tensions. So if they achieve a degree of unity, I would imagine it would be for the purpose of being able to oppose the government more effectively, while they all remain leaders, well, with the exception of Barath, Gopi Singh, Moonilal and their supporters. Some of them remain members of the opposition and will have to work with her as leader of the opposition. So I suppose the day-to-day operation of opposing the government in the parliament will force them to work together. But I think any healing will be superficial.
Do you think the electorate will buy that superficial healing? Or will they need to genuinely make an effort?
No, I don't think so. I think they have damaged themselves both individually and damaged the UNC as a brand. And I think it will be a long time before the public overcomes the image of them fighting among themselves, and more importantly, accusing each other of rigging the election, or the accusations about rigging the election. Those in some ways have damaged the brand even more. You pointed out in your introduction that ballot papers was allegedly found on a riverbank. There were also allegations that the lists were irregular, that some names didn't appear, that other names appeared twice in different constituencies. There were allegations that the electoral ink was watered down and washed off easily. There were allegations that people were turned away, bona fide members were turned away from the polls. I think in some ways that's even more damaging than the harsh things they had to say about each other. They look like a party who can't do something honestly, and that's the enduring image at the minute.
Now, these issues that you just mentioned a while ago, we assume that Dr. Monilal is going to be pursuing these irregularities, as he put it, in the elections on Saturday. But with the margin that Mrs. Persad Bissessar won by, do you think there's any room there for some foul play in the ballot, so to speak?
Well, I mean, there's always room for foul play, but the fact is, you're articulating the common sense position of many observers in Trinidad, which is if you beat somebody 10-1, you would have to rig an awful lot of ballots to achieve that kind of margin. It wasn't close, so that if you found 200 papers on a riverbank, those 200 votes might have made a difference. I think in terms of political legitimacy, it's whatever they might do if they go to court. I don't think it will achieve any political legitimacy for the losers, the challenge, because they got beaten so badly.
And again, with this margin, this vast margin that Mrs. Persad Bissessar took office by, do you think it disseminates questions that were raised about her stewardship of the party?
Well, I don't know. The way I look at it is that she might take the view. Remember, there was a lot of criticism that they fought the campaign not so much as UNC versus the PNM, but as Kamla versus the PNM, and a lot of their election material was designated Kamla 2015. So I suppose she will take the view that the choice of running her as the main attraction of the UNC has been vindicated. It's not likely to make her more humble in her view of how attractive she is, as opposed to how attractive they are. It's a vindication of running that kind of personalized presidential style campaign, even though she lost.
So do you then think that the questions should not have arisen in the first place?
You mean that there should not have been a contest?
Right.
No, I think it was absolutely right that they should contest, because she lost 4 or 5 elections, four elections prior to the general election of 2015, and I think it is right they should have pursued a challenge. I think the difficulty about the challenge is some of the personal attacks and the allegations about rigging. I think that's really the difficulty. I think they were absolutely right to challenge her, because she had lost, and had lost more than one election. But I think it is the nature of the fight and the nasty taste that it leaves in the mouth that will be a problem for brand UNC for some time to come.
You just noted rightly that the accusations slung at each other in the lead up to these elections did do some damage to the UNC brand itself. How do you propose they go forward to fix that stained image? Well,
I don't think they can fix it. I think they have to find some of the newer faces on her executive will have to be projected as new and fresh material, untainted by all the various allegations. I think that's the best they can do. I don't think the old wine, in new bottles is going to, or in new clothes is going to make much difference. I think their best bet is to promote some of the newer faces, some of the younger senators and so on that are on her slate, and attempt to say, well, they have refreshed their model and they're ready for government again.
Now, a big part of each individual's campaign message was to be the party that can successfully challenge the PNM in an upcoming election. So should the UNC be successful in their petition bid that is now before the courts, and the elections results were declared null and void, the general elections that is, do you think this new party, led by Kamla-Persad Bissessar, would run a successful campaign against the current PNM team? Would they be able to win them if the elections are called again soon?
Well, we are assessing that, of course, many months before such an eventuality, if it does occur. I would be surprised if there would be very much difference in the outcome in those 6 seats, simply because it would nevertheless be, it would be simply, let's assume it takes place next year, it would simply be Kamla 2016 trying to achieve what she achieved in 2015. So it would take some major deficiencies, obvious deficiencies in the new government for them to succeed in a renewed challenge in those 6 seats. But we are very long way off from that. The matter has to wend its way through the courts, and we don't know the quality of the evidence and so on. So I don't know that I don't know they'll be in any better shape, let's say, in 12 months' time if they have to fight those 6 marginal seats. I don't know that they'll be in any better shape then than they are now or they were in September 2015. But of course, a lot depends on our economy. There are very gloomy signs about the economy. And, you know, they say a week in politics is a long time. Things could change in a flash. But the way things stand at the moment, I don't think they will be very successful in refighting those 6 seats. But of course, many things can change. There was a very big layoff of workers today in the ArcelorMittal steel plant. So who knows what the economic conditions might be like in 9 to 12 months' time. It may make a significant difference.
Thank you very much for speaking.
The economy is going to be a very big issue in the coming year.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, Mr. Daly.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
We were just joined by political analyst in Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Martin Daly, discussing the United National Congress internal elections which were held on the weekend and what to expect in light of Mrs. Kamla-Persad Bissessar retaining her leadership.